Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome aboard. This is your captain speaking, Debbie Bugaki. Today we'll be taking a flight over nature's view, a 2030 climate journey story, kicking off from Nairobi. We might take a direct flight to Redignify or make an initial landing, but at the end of the day, we will land at taking action. I hope you enjoy this climate journey story. Seatbelts on and wheels up. So I realized I didn't quite tell you the behind story for this project, and as promised, finally here it is. So maybe 6 years ago, I volunteered in my country's desert region, the northeastern region, as I mentioned to you. It's quite a while back now, thinking about it. It's just been 6 years. That's so long of a time. And I got to meet lovely people with deep and beautiful uneroded culture, with hearts for community, for each other, and also for strangers. They treat strangers really well. If you want to do some traveling, for sure, you should try the northeastern region of Kenya. It's the whole desert experience. Has, quote unquote, what many people who don't know the cultures here, something almost similar to what the Maasai culture is about. I won't preempt. You should Google and see the culture of the people and communities that live there. It's very beautiful and breathtaking. I think I didn't even mention to you, this is another great fact about the region there. And as I've been discovering, Kenya is too beautiful and has so many facets with it. The first hominid of man, that's the Homo habilis, he was actually discovered in that region of Kenya, northeastern region. I think Turkana County still. So the cradle of man is actually Kenya. If you have been looking for your roots, here they are. Anyway, so it's a beautiful place with beautiful culture, beautiful sceneries. If you want to travel there, I would encourage it. You just need lots of sunscreen. But anyway, however, it being in the desert, of course, you know, the challenges that go on with that, and scorching suns, little water, lots of hunger sometimes, and starvation, and the difficulties I've mentioned in the previous episodes. I just don't want to repeat them. Those are the things and the atrocities that happen in that region. However, maybe I'm not saying that's what happens day in, day out. This has been prevalent for the past 3 years with the droughts. But the people, they actually know how to coexist with the desert and in the desert. And they have some oases, and they have some plants that are drought resistant, and they've decided and also know how to work with them. The animals there also can eat certain shrubs that other animals in different areas cannot. So it is a home for them when it's not too bad. When the rains are occasional, it is beautiful and it is a home for them. They can and have always for sure been surviving. It's just been a problem these past 3 years. So that's 6 years ago. I volunteered at one of the counties in the northeastern region of my country and got to meet these beautiful people, as well as experience the difficulties, considering I have never been to a desert and seen how horrible it is. For me, I found it really horrible that it was like 40 degrees every day. So, but to them, it was kind of normal. So 3 years later, I was looking into ways is there honestly how they survive and ways that this surviving mode of theirs can be bettered. And for 3 years into that, after the 6 years, I was just still checking on what could be done or how do they do things there. And believe it or not, that's when I actually came across the works of Dr. Elaine. So for me, it was just like for interest. I was just checking to know what happens there. How do they get water there? How do they eat? How do they survive? How do they trade their livestock? It was just for interest, and how can all this be bettered? And then I came across the works of Dr. Elaine. So I saw he was there just drilling boreholes and walking and talking about the people there. He has lots of pictures there. By the way, if you can check his website, you'll see what I saw for the first time. Just nothing casual. That's 3 years. 2 years later, I get accepted into the research externship with the National Geographic and Nature Conservancy on the same thing, water and desert life, just freshwater conservation. And now the discoveries I made with the aquifer in Turkana County and its environs So it's something that I can say I have been thinking about for 5-6 years. Like, how do these people survive, and how can these people have better lives, and what happens when there's no water? And for the past 3 years, even more so leading up to 2022, it's something I have not only been looking into in matters of interest, but in ways to find solutions. So when I got accepted into this research externship, I for sure knew I can't run away from this. It's something I should and could have done from way back then. So with the data and the previous episode, I as explained that I decided to move forward with all this, seeing the time it has gotten to get me to this place and all the info and all the support I have. Why not act on it? Honestly, if you have something, by the way, you're thinking about and you've been thinking about for a long time, and this is a sign you need, go ahead and do it. It's about time that you act upon something you've been thinking about. As long as it's good and it's legal, please. So I'd like to introduce my project, Redignify. First of all, I think I realized I also didn't think about including the name explanation to this episode, but I will. Dignity is something that is a right, even as in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, I think 20-something. It is a right that someone lives a dignified life, and as of last year as well, someone lives in a clean and healthy environment, enabling them to survive is also another right that was added by the UN. So dignity is something that is bound and is rightfully owned by every human being by the virtue of just them being human beings. So it's not for some of us to have enough water and some of other people not to. Some of us to have enough food and other people not to. It is the right of everyone and every human being, by virtue of being human, to have equal rights when it comes to certain basic needs and necessities and resources. So the people there have beautiful culture, as I've explained, have a lot of historical significance with the history of mankind, have everything nice, and even if they did not have that, just by virtue of being human, I think they deserved that dignity and still do deserve that dignity of living a decent life and having an equal shot to make it in life, If the girls there need to walk for 2 kilometers to fetch water, to and fro, maybe 4-5 kilometers. If the ladies and lactating mothers need to walk for 16 kilometers, and this is something that's happening, and I also maybe will attach some articles that show this currently ongoing. So if ladies need to walk for 16 kilometers to access healthcare, yet everyone else in the rest of the country and the rest of the world actually has healthcare facilities on their phone and they can get help in 5 minutes. Who determines then that this person is to get this and this person is not to get that? Nothing determines that. Everyone is human by virtue of being human, and that's it. So this project aims to bring back the lost dignity that should be accorded to these communities by just that plain facts. And I think I've mentioned this. It is a right now, and if anyone or any organization wants to campaign on this or bank on this going forward, not only in relation to the people in this community, but anyone and everywhere, how the indigenous persons are being violated with their rights. So if someone wants to campaign or bank on this more, you have all the supporting rights that I have mentioned and more that you could dig up to fight for a case that's worth it to support the life and dignity of these human beings, and that will give them as well a pedestal to achieve the right to self-development, which is also another right. I'm now turning into a human rights guru. But anyway, this project therefore aims, in a nutshell, to bring water to the communities and the members of Loima constituency, in a sense, just to green the desert and improve the livelihoods of the people there, most especially the women and children. I have mentioned that they are the most affected by drought atrocities in regards to malnutrition, and also for the expectant mothers and lactating mothers. They really face it when it comes to drought and famine. And these are some articles I have mentioned as well that I could attach to show you the statistics. I think over 600,000 children faced malnutrition in one of the sub-locations, and that's a lot of kids. So drought and famine really affects the women and children. And as we have spoken about as well in climate change, in regards to gender and children, maybe you can take a look at that in season 1 and understand how climate change really deeply affects these people, and more so climate change and lack of water. So seeing the livestock die and women walk for kilometers, malnourished kids, many of you have seen, or it has been portrayed by the media wrongfully, the experiences of Africa. Seeing this for sure on TV and seeing it for yourself are two different things, and it changes you. And this is exactly what happened to me, coming from the 6 years of experience with interacting with the people there and having things falling into place, all to place me on this pedestal of Redignify. So as much as the things that have been portrayed by the media outside there, I said truly, they are a community that's beautiful and with open hearts and uneroded culture. That's something we can't for sure quantify. It's too rich to quantify. The project has a long-term and a short-term view. The short-term view being what I've mentioned previously, to sink a borehole in one of the areas in Loima constituency and making household water available to the communities there. Part of the short term as well, and maybe long term-ish, is this podcast, which was part of the plans when I was talking about episode 7 on what action I was going to take. I decided I'm going to tell the whole world about this, and seeing that this might be something short term, it may be running for a few months or years. I have understood it might go well over and longer years than I thought it could. So this is also more of a short-term and long-term endeavor to explain matters that I have been involved with, that's climate change, and also explain the matters of this project and research and the actions it's taken, as well as documenting it. This is also for documentation purposes, that I would remember this actually happened into this great detail and never forget, for myself and for people to come find encouragement to also venture into things that they are dreaming or think are kind of intimidating, but it's possible. For sure, I lived in Kenya and I had no idea of this aquifer. And it's so sad and very funny because I had no absolute idea that it actually existed, and in such strategic points for sure. In the middle of this desert is where people actually are losing their lives. And for years we thought the only solution would be relief food or climate migration. But the solution is right there. So this podcast specifically, in this season, it aims to inform and to empower the masses on this information and ultimately inform action, not to mention to decipher the misconceptions and the myths that are associated with the aquifer and how to drill it, which I think I have deciphered most of them. It's to inform and to empower the masses that this is actually something that can be done and something has been done, something that has been done before, and it's possible. It's also to inform the governments and policymakers and those who sit at the big decision-making tables, not only in my country, but in countries that have similar issues in regards to water and desertic issues or food issues. Maybe this and even the previous episodes can be used to inform decisions because they are resourceful and can be verified and is on the ground and up to date to some extent. Depends on when you're listening to this, but it can be used and could be used for sure to inform decisions that make lives better. Going to the long-term goals, it includes incorporating this water into the ways of life of the communities there. I don't know if I fully mentioned this before, but the communities there are pastoralists and their main source of livelihood is livestock. So they keep cattle and camels. They keep camels, by the way, and that's the source of livelihood in terms of the byproducts of this livestock. That's their main source of trade, and that's something I think I also mentioned during season 1, I think, on the episode on climate change and peace and insecurity. And then you get to see the dynamics of if the climate change and the stability of resources is threatened by the effects of massive changes in the weather patterns, how their whole lives are affected from the economical side to the political side and instability. So having livestock as their main source of trade is something that's really big for them. And I hope this is something that I'm explaining to those who have no idea how people bank on livestock and have no quite much knowledge on how this is a whole manner of trade. So I see the incorporation of agriculture in their way of life will be an important add-on and even can be used to curb the menace of malnutrition. For this will increase the food sources other than the usual meat and milk. And my guests and my co-lead, if I may preempt as well, coming up in the next episode, we'll talk about the agricultural side of water and the people in that constituency and how it can be used to better a desert, to green a desert, which is something I said was a main aim of this. Think with me of what water can be used, for example, to this community. Water will mean agriculture. Agriculture will mean healthier diets. It will mean stronger children, more time for women and girls, to concentrate on other things. Especially girls, they will need not to walk for kilometers to look for water if it's just right outside their house in a tap. The hours they use to pursue this, they will now be able to focus that and put that into their education. They will no longer need to track for kilometers to pursue certain things like food. It will or access markets for buying food. It will just be outside their homes. So we expect also an economic boom for the women to be involved in the trade of their farm products, which is something that will be brought by with the agricultural things they will invest in. So what happens then to the family income if both agriculture and livestock are being incorporated into it? What happens to the girls who not only have time to go to school, but their parents now can afford the school fees then? How about their health and having balanced diets and regular diets? How about the security of that area when the resources are now enough for everyone to not need to fight for? Okay, what if now there is just enough resources to go by for everyone and anyone, not only in one constituency, but if replicated in different constituencies of that county, because the water is indeed vast and it's massive. It's available and enough for everyone, including the whole country and 3 more countries to support. So what happens if all this is a stability or a constant in that area? Water, as I hope I am showing you, is life. And to these people, it would mean a lot to them. I also hope, my dear listeners, that by this you're also learning how to be grateful for even the things that you don't quite regard. This is something I also said. For me, water has not, even if it's been an issue with the past few years, having it being overly connected due to the massive population or having it scarce because of the drought, it's never been quite an issue in terms of its availability. But coming to do this research has also opened my gratitude eyes to see that some things we actually take for granted are life to other people. So be grateful for certain things, even the least. Into the technical parts, even as continue on this, maybe for those who'd like to have a know-of in relation to conservation parts and the conservation part of the research, it's called Freshwater Conservation and Community Issues. I know there will be a question maybe from the conservation side. What would be the storage and sustainability of this water? How will they manage it? So storage tanks and proper distribution channels are a key part and emphasis on this. It's not only a project of mine, it belongs to the communities there. So they are the biggest custodians, and educating the population on its conservation of this water. Yes, it's in plenty, but it doesn't mean now we actually bathe with 10 buckets of water. So educating them on the priority of conserving this water is something I'm looking into, and I have so many partners coming on board on how to use water safely and sparingly, even so in the desert. And seeing that this is also a desert, I know the energy concerns and how this water will be channeled and how it will be pumped is something I have thought into. And lucky for us, that's a desert, and we have all the sun we need and can ever want. So solar energy, which is clean energy, green energy. Hello. Of course, I would go for something that's more green energy. And solar energy, of course, is the best energy source to be used to pump and retain the water sources in that area in terms of channeling and stuff like that. I have also made liaisons with agricultural techs and gurus, and maybe my colleague will explain how she's stepping into this sector from the next episode to teach the communities on how to incorporate agriculture into their ways of life. So we're just not giving them water and leaving it to them to figure out how they're going to use it or how to figure it out for themselves and, stumble through life. We have people, of course, who will come and teach them how to go about this. And this is something I'm saying, it's not so novel or abstract or something that hasn't been done before. The Israeli government, I know through Arwa organization, has done this before. It's just replicating it, and that's the aim of this project, because the more, the merrier. So I hope I have explained some technicalities of this, but we will get deeper into this in the next episode, because maybe for some policymakers or some people who are planning to do this also need to know some certain things, and I'm glad to help, of course, with my information. This is not a foreign concept. As I said again, in Napu region now, it supports over a few thousand people. It's now a whole town. This Napu region is where Dr. Elaine first sank the well to prove that the water is there. So right now it's a whole booming thing and a whole village that's supported by this water and a whole economy. So it's something just not to be feared upon and, just looked at in an abstract way. So Redignify is going to join in the list of what is already existent. And more so also because of this podcast. I don't think the other guys have podcasts, but through this podcast, it will be known more to other people across the world and hopefully inspire some other regions with the same issues to take action, because it's in the long run more sustainable, cheaper, and convenient for the people and the governments in those sides. So as I conclude, I have attached my story map to this whole project. It's more like a simplified explanation of the research and projects, and it has the interactive maps that I talked about that you can look into and see the visualization of all this project and maybe bring it into context. So I hope I could get some feedback from you on what you think on the whole idea, having read the whole summary or the whole story map. And this is something, if you want to refer people to, they do not want to listen to all the other episodes, you can tell them to listen to episode 7 and read the story map. They'd understand what I'm talking about. So thank you for once again being here and listening to this episode. See you on the next flight. I want you guys to meet someone special, so see you for sure. Take care for Earth.